Now, one state that Travis says is moving in the right direction is Oklahoma. It hasn't done that well in the past, but now it's lowered its taxes several times, and presto, people start to move to Oklahoma. TW Shannon's the Speaker of the House there. So, TW, Oklahoma, I think of the Dust Bowl. Why do people want to move to Oklahoma?
Well, you know, John, it's simple. In Oklahoma, we know that if you want more of something, you don't tax it, you tax it less. If you want less of something, you tax it more. And so we're moving to reduce our state income tax rate. It's at 5%, 5.25% now, and we're looking to take it to 4.89. And every time we've done it in the past, we've seen increased revenues and we've seen growth. So we're trying to keep the momentum going in Oklahoma.
And even the usually clueless mainstream media seems to start to get this. Time magazine had a headline, "In the heartland, Oklahoma," which means to them Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, supply side is the yellow brick road. And supply side is our Laffer's argument that if you lower taxes, people will come to you.
Well, you know, when you look at what's happening and contrast us to what's happening in Washington, D.C., you know, it's pretty clear that, you know, if we're not going to be taking freedoms away from people, we're trying to expand freedoms in Oklahoma. And the best way to do that is allow people to keep more of their hard work and money. And we're continuing to move the needle. We've got to be competitive. Our forefathers saw it fit that the states would be competitive. In Oklahoma, we want to win.
And you feel competition from Kansas and Missouri?
Well, there's no question. When you've got the 13th largest economy in the world just south of you, in Texas, you've got to be competitive and always moving the needle. And frankly, you know, it's like my friend Will Weatherford, the Speaker of the House in Florida, said, we've got to be about creating pockets of freedom around the country. Because if you look at how the federal government has continued with its intrusion on personal liberties, it's going to be up to the states that are going to make the difference. If there's going to be reform in the country, it's going to happen in the 50 capitals around the states.
And Travis, Oklahoma was losing people for a while.
You see a change of fortune in the numbers based on part
show that
with
here,
Oklahoma right here. You can see that over time. They were bottoming out, losing people and income, and about 2005 that reversed. That's consistent with some of the tax cuts that they were passing in Oklahoma City at that time.
I'd also like to point out, John, that didn't happen until I got elected also.
I love what the Speaker is doing because he understands Oklahoma does not have the beaches that Florida and California have. They don't have the huge universities that maybe you have in places like Boston and New York. A lot of the incumbency factors in other states that are helpful, they don't have. But they know that they can be competitive if they get labor and taxes right. And they're going to do it. And before you know it, Oklahoma is going to be in the top 5.
And Travis, you say celebrities are a good leading indicator?
Well, they are entrepreneurs, and we see evidence from people like Tiger Woods and others that make the move all the time.
He moved from
California to Florida, starting his career. NBA players like LeBron James and other players that end up moving to Texas get the first announcement on their doorstep that think of what you can buy with the money you save.
The Houston Rockets have pamphlets that remind players how many Rolex watches and Bentleys you could afford from the money you save in taxes, just moving to Texas?
That's right. And in many cases, these athletes have an opportunity to earn more after taxes, regardless of whether they play another game or not.
Michael Phelps doesn't live in Maryland anymore?
That's right. Antonio Romo is the best paid athlete after taxes, even though he might not have gross pay equivalent to others in the NFL. You see, it's
because he lives in Texas, a no-income tax state.
Being a resident of Texas or a resident of a lower tax state means real value.
Speaker Shannon, you've lowered taxes several times, but why don't you go to zero like Texas and Florida do?
You know, we actually had a proposal on the table to do that last year. Because of some of the lobbying efforts, we weren't successful at it. But again, I think what's most important is that we keep moving the needle.
Wouldn't you have trouble running state government?
You know, well, certainly that argument could be made. Obviously, you've got to be able to keep a commitment to core government services. But, you know, there are a lot of states around the country that have proven that you can do it without a state income tax. It's the most regressive tax out there. And again, if you want people to, you know, to have investment dollars in your state, it's like my mentor, J.C. Watts, said, capital won't flow to a hostile environment. You've got to keep it as open and free market principled as you can. And in Oklahoma, we believe we're doing that.
Thank you, Speaker Shannon, Darcy Olson, Travis Brown.